distinguished guests, members of faculty, my dear friends, welcome to the third day of Conventus 2020, the annual management conclave of International Management Institute, New Delhi. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought the world to a screeching halt. Institutions, corporations, and governments alike are getting accustomed to this new normal. Conventus is a legacy that we at IMI are determined to continue, come what may, and in that very spirit, we are proud to announce that for the first time, Conventus 20 is being held online. My fellow Kampiya Palak and I, Parth, shall take you through the Information Management and Analytics Summit of Conventus 20.
This year, Conventus is structured around the theme Survival and Growth in the VUCA World, Adaptability, Agility, and Sustainability. The acronym VUCA, which stands for Volatility, Uncertainty, Complexity, and Ambiguity, has gained massive popularity in the business world over the past few decades. The VUCA world demands leaders to come up with realistic and applicable solutions. Firstly, by tackling volatility with a visionary approach and by not allowing small roadblocks to come in the way of the overarching vision. Further, businesses need to gauge uncertainty by bridging the gap between the causes and their effects. Firms can counter complexity by breaking down the loops of reactions and promoting proactivity towards solving problems. To conquer ambiguity, continuous learning, and swiftness in decision making is the key. For years, we've seen industries change entire business plans overnight to match current market trends.
The 2002 market crash had disastrous effects on various industries. Similarly, the 2008 financial crisis had detrimental socio-economic effects on the world. A common factor in both situations is how unprepared it left everyone. As it rightly said, the best way to come out of a crisis is on top, and the one way to do that is by staying constantly vigilant. As future leaders, understanding how to tackle these four elements will give us the opportunity to stay ahead of the curve. Survival in a VUCA world is the need of the hour, and growth is a true way forward. Before we proceed further into the session, let us have a look at the Conventus video.
Business often takes inspiration from the art of war strategies. Gone are the days when a single textbook solution could work all molds. Challenges have become multifaceted. As experienced by the US Army during the Cold War, VUCA, an acronym describing how less they knew or could think regarding situations. The COVID-19 pandemic has thrown the world into disarray. Everything has become increasingly unstable. The concept of clarity is muddled. Predicting the future is nearly impossible. Interconnectivity is more chaotic than ever. So, how do you plan on coping with the new normal?
Before we begin with the session, we'd like to give a brief introduction of our distinguished panelists. We are delighted to have Mr. Utpal Chakraborty. He is an eminent data scientist, AI researcher, author, and strategist having more than 2 decades of industry experience with companies like L&T Infotech, IBM, Capgemini, and other MNCs. His recent research on machine learning, titled Layered Approximation for Deep Neural Network, and the book Artificial Intelligence for All has been appreciated in different conferences, institutions, and universities. He's a part of advisory body in many government and private research institutions. Sir, we are honored to have you on the panel and look forward to gaining valuable insights from you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
We are delighted to have Mr. Anish Agarwal, Director, Data and Analytics India, NatWest Group. He is recognized as top 100 influential readers in Asian analytics industry and top 40 under 40 data scientists in India. A professional with over 19 years of experience and an alumnus of Harvard Business School and MIT Sloan Business School. He has exceptional expertise in delivering value through innovative use of data across a spectrum of industry verticals. He's on a panel of several AI-themed industry bodies and has authored several papers on various subjects related to artificial intelligence and advanced data and analytics. Sir, we are honored to have you on the panel and look forward to gaining valuable insights from you.
Pleasure, thank you.
It is with immense pleasure we introduce Dr. Sheetal Jain. She is the CEO and founder of Lux Analytics, a luxury market consulting firm. She holds a PhD from Aligarh Muslim University. She has been honored with Outstanding Paper Award by Emerald Literary Awards 2018. She has been regularly quoted, covered across print and digital media, and has been appointed in the editorial review board of Journal of Consumer Behavior. Ma'am, we are honored to have you on the panel and look forward to gaining valuable insights from you.
Thank you so much.
We are honored to introduce Mr. Satimo Chatterjee, Executive Vice President at Analytica Data Lab. He has 18 plus years of global experience in a variety of roles in companies such as Citigroup and GE Enabling Business Solutions, driven by analytical innovations through the right leverage of business knowledge, data science, and technology. He has been featured among the top 10 data scientists in India in 2019 by one of the leading analytics and AI media houses of India. We look forward to having an intriguing session with you, sir.
Thank you for having me. Look forward.
We are delighted to have Mr. Piyush Chauhan, Group Chief Information Officer at Lulu Group. He's a digital evangelist with a passion for transforming businesses with use of technology. With over 2 decades of experience working with global consumer and retail companies, he has an excellent track record of delivering results and creating value across organizations. He has been widely recognized leader in digital transformation and has been a speaker at over 100 global events. Sir, we are honored to have you and look forward to gaining valuable insights from you.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Our moderator for the session is Mr. Nishant Pandey. Mr. Pandey brings together technology, design, and analytics to create products that succeed. He has led teams that launch successful B2C and B2B products for Naukri.com, Jeevansathi.com, and Shiksha.com. He started his career working in operations and sales at Schlumberger Oilfield Services. He's a graduate of IIT Delhi and the Indian School of Business, Hyderabad. Sir, we are honored to have you on the panel and look forward to gaining valuable insights from you.
Thank you.
Understanding how a VUCA environment can be effectively managed in the field of analytics to achieve growth and sustainability, we present to you the theme of this summit, Opportunity in Crisis, Embracing Intelligent Innovation and Digital Transformation. As John F. Kennedy emphasized that with every crisis, there arises new and unique opportunities. This is quite relatable in the times we are facing right now. The COVID-19 pandemic has resulted in crisis and havoc in many sectors.
On the contrary, this situation has forced many industries to innovate and evolve their working. Many have successfully adapted to these changes and many more have started the process. The pandemic has definitely accelerated the process of digital transformation and intelligent innovation. This is the right time to seize the moment and make the best of these opportunities. Let us discuss the various challenges faced by different industries during this crisis. While manufacturing is a historically slow-moving and conservative industry, supply chain disruptions and social distancing on high-touch assembly lines add significant complexity to today's processes. Education sector too is facing major difficulties with the transition to virtual learning. Airline sales are expected to drop by $314 billion. In banking and financial services, people are transitioning their needs from long-term to short-term, and hence, bringing out new products aligning with the needs is gaining complexity. The Indian media and entertainment industry, worth 1.82 trillion, is now starting at 25,000 crore loss. In IT industry, challenges such as privacy, data protection, work from home, lack of secure database, and many inefficient techniques have been exposed.
With every crisis, there arises new opportunities. Now let's briefly look at some of these transformations on digital front. There has been a surge in contactless actions, be it contactless deliveries, payments, or manufacturing. Digital payments transaction through UPI have made a near V-shaped recovery. When normal sports cannot be played, we could see the increase in watching of esports. Entertainment consumption has risen notably within the at-home segments and OTT platforms. Institutions and schools have also shifted their base to virtual platforms. Digital healthcare applications have started the wave of video consulting at the time where overcrowding of hospitals is the last thing we want.
There's also been after effects of this digital transformation. For example, with the help of AI, there has been optimization of resources in manufacturing and supply chain industry, because of which there is a transition from quantity to quality of work. Also, analytics has entered every industry, and soon it will emerge as a backbone for most of the sectors. Strategies such as do-it-yourself has gained a lot of popularity, mainly in banking and financial services sector. Earlier, moving to a digital front was a choice that many did not prefer, but in the current VUCA world, it has become a need to move to the digital front.
With the innovative transformation, there lies a plethora of opportunities that the future holds for us. Few of them are the need for online collaboration tools will increase. The online sales channel, which is discretionary, will become one of the mandatory channels in future. Needless to say that this area will require a well-crafted digital strategy and investments. Usage of cloud for storing and sharing data will increase rapidly. Industry 4.0 transformation will become more relevant post-COVID. The organization's focus should be on making information security a part of overall design rather than a post-facto check. Traditional factory floor practices would be reconfigured as manufacturing companies increasingly adopt automation and AI through value chains in the wake of COVID-19 pandemic.
We would now like to request Mr. Nishant Pandey to take forward the session and start the panel discussion.
I think he's
Nishant,
frozen.
sir, are you there?
He's on mute. Nishant, you're on mute.
So you
Right.
can take forward the session.
All right. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Pleasure to be here. And we have just 1 hour to make this a very fruitful discussion. So without taking any more time, the way we're going to just structure this conversation, just like Parul and Palak, I think. Sorry if I got anything wrong. Taking what they spoke about, we have 4 questions to answer. The first question is that whatever situation the whole world is going through, the situation that all the businesses are going through, is this situation going to continue, right? So is the kind of digital transformation we are seeing in this last 4 or 5 months, will this continue? Will this thrust, will this impetus, will this focus, will this priority continue in the post-pandemic world, if there ever is one? Second question, so let's say it does continue. Second question is, in order to, are the organizations ready to seize these new opportunities? So, you know, when the pandemic change, if in the post-pandemic world as well, this thrust on digital innovation will continue, and it's going to spring up new opportunities, and are the organizations ready to seize these opportunities? Next, after that is, let's say you are ready to seize the opportunities, but how will you enable them in your systems? How will you develop a culture in your organization that will allow the technologies that allows people and the employees to be able to execute down that path? And lastly, how should businesses approach the recovery from the crisis? That means significantly increase the value capture. So executing merely doesn't mean that you capture the value. So the fourth question is, how do you capture the value? Just to recap, at the risk of repeating myself, will it continue? Are the organizations ready? What should the execution strategy be? And finally, how to create value out of it. So the way I'm going to do it right now is I'll just take the first question and go to a panelist, and go with the second question to the second panelist. And at every opportunity, I'll ask some other panelist about their views or counter views. So I'll begin with Dr. Sheetal Jain. Dr. Sheetal Jain, can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
All right.
Yeah.
Great. Is this slide always going to be on, Palak? have future transformation, the slide is permanently on. Is that intended?
Yes,
We
sir.
see you, Nishant.
Okay, great. I'm just not able to see all the participants. Anyways, I'll figure that out. So, Dr. Sheetal Jain, so do you think that this, whatever we've seen the last 4 or 5 months, and this migration towards, digital technologies in various sectors, and I know every one of us is really only familiar with the few sectors that we work in, that we interact with, and nobody can possibly have a commentary on all the sectors in the world. But to the best of your knowledge, do you think most sectors in the world will continue this thrust towards digital technology even 1 or 2 years after the pandemic scare, the pandemic situation has been stabilized, has been brought under control? Do you think this thrust will continue? What's your view on that?
Thank you so much, Nishant, for asking me this question, and thank you the IMI and students for beautifully conceptualizing this event. And even though we are, the world is almost, because of the COVID-19, in a chaotic situation, but you guys have somehow managed to keep your ritual of having this convocation of yours every year continued. This itself shows that how determined you are. So very good on the part of the students and the college. And thank you for having me here. So coming to the question, first of all, in my viewpoint, COVID-19 is not the cause. Rather, I would say it has acted as a catalyst. It has accelerated the speed of digital revolution. And as per a recent data by McKinsey, that businesses have advanced 5 years in just 3 months. So if I talk about, last so many years, we have been talking about going digital transformation, revolution, innovation, but a lot of companies, all these companies have been very complacent, chalta hai kind of an attitude was happening. Things are running, we were taking things for granted, but this particular pandemic, have forced all the organizations to think out of the box, to go beyond their comfort zones. And particularly since I come from luxury background, if I talk about my sector, luxury sector. So, luxury has been the last one, the slowest one to embrace digitization, because luxury has always been about experiences and sensorial pleasures. So, digitization was never on a kind of a priority. But this pandemic, even the luxury companies across various, I would say, sectors, be it the automobile or fashion or, health, fitness, across, have realized that it is either digital or die, pivot or perish. So now coming that whether this kind of rapid migration to digital technology driven by this pandemic will continue, maybe perhaps in the post-pandemic world. So, world has evolved, we are evolving, businesses are evolving. If I see our routine, we are having this convocation online, we are doing shopping online, we are having our family get-togethers online, fashion shows, events have gone online. So it has, in last 6 months, almost roughly, it has become all integral. Digital has become like an integral part of our lives. And I believe, much of it will be there even in the post-pandemic world. If I take the examples, like, for example, around us, like grocery stores have gone online, schools and colleges have pivoted to digital classrooms from the physical ones. Doctors have gone with telemedicines, video consultations, etc., etc. So, this has created an alternative revenue streams rather for so many businesses. And even when we switch on, when we get on to the new normal, it will never be the same world again, of course. If we get on to the new normal in the post-pandemic scenario, I believe a lot of it will still be there. We all are working from home. And many companies right now also have said that there could be work from home across, even in the post-pandemic scenario. So, but what is required for the organizations they have to be very agile, they have to be nimble, they have to be proactive, or otherwise, be it the retailers or restaurateurs or any sector, they will perhaps, die before they realize. So we have to understand the evolving consumer journey is what I believe. And if the organizations work and adapt accordingly, they'll be ready and fit for this world, which I believe some of these things are here to stay. Some of the notions are here to stay. Be it be, some of you, some of us could have been the first time online buyers, but looking through the convenience, it might have become our habit in the last 6 months, and we might continue even once the pandemic is over, once we can go to the stores without even fear. But still, we might continue buying online, and similarly, we can have blended learning. Similarly, schools and colleges are thinking of blended learning. Offices are thinking of having some, because it is not just saving their time, operational cost, efficiencies, and so data will be gold in the coming time, because understanding consumers, we can provide hyper personalization to them. So,
All right,
Nishant,
thank you, Dr. Sheetal Jain. Thank you so much for the summarizing that very well. And you're right. I think the luxury segment, the luxury sector, the luxury businesses are probably going to be the last ones, or traditionally they would have thought that we will be the last ones to digitize, because it depends so much on high touch consumer interaction to be able to make that sale. And if even that industry is getting impacted by digital innovation, then I'm sure all the other industries certainly must be, and the thrust will continue. So I'd like to just steer to the next question, and I'll pass it on to Mr. Anish Agarwal, and I think that we can benefit from his perspective, is what he thinks. Let's segue from this question that, very quickly, 10 seconds or 20 seconds on how much of a thrust do you think will continue over the next few years and, forever? And then also speak for a minute or two on what you think, whether the organizations are ready. I think I'm asking you because one of the reasons is you seem to have worked in a spectrum of industry verticals, so you might have some views on how ready different industries might be. So one is, how long will this continue? And second, are the organizations, in your opinion, how well are they ready to seize these opportunities? Mr. Anish, mute, Mesha. I think you're on mute.
Sure. Thanks for asking that question. And perhaps the way I would look at it is splitting this into two parts. Will the pandemic continue? When will it end? I wish any one of us had an answer to this. But I think what will happen, even though pandemic comes to an end, I'm sure there are a number of vaccines which are currently being developed across the globe. Once we have the right mix of vaccine, we can definitely control the pandemic. But there's one thing that I really wish, which should not end, is the wheel of innovation which this entire pandemic has actually triggered. If we were to compare with a few years ago or even a few months ago, organizations seemed to have a lot of time in innovating, and they were fairly relaxed in terms of, okay, we can do this, we have a plan for innovation, let's revamp, let's have something which may disrupt the market. And that overall plan may have had a timeline of multiple months or multiple years. But now organizations don't have that much time. Whatever strategy they devise, this has to be executed in weeks and in days. That's one. The second is, if you look at the overall curve of adoption, there's been skewness across various verticals and industries. As an example, manufacturing industry, while it always wanted to adapt innovation and new technology, it has been slightly slow because of the entire machine process automation, which is really triggered a lot of ifs and buts. And it's not easy to achieve level of automation from a manufacturing standpoint as opposed to the process automation. And coming back to services, if we were to talk about RPA, as a technology, RPA is really exponentially grown in the last couple of years. And today we are actually harnessing the benefits of whatever we could automate using RPA. On the similar side,
Mr. Anish, could you just, for the benefit of the students, could you just spend half a minute on what RPA is? They may or may not know, I'm not sure. But
no, absolutely. So RPA, as it stands for, it means robotics process automation. Essentially, it is aided by a bot, which is more of a software program or a computer program, which you can deploy on your machine. And it's very simple. The way you teach a kid what job needs to be done, or a fresher, the task that needs to be done, all you do is you deploy a bot, train the bot by means of recording a specific task on your PC, and that's about it. And when you play back what you've taught to the bot does exactly the same what you've done. So essentially, the beauty about robotics process automation is it conducts the same repetitive task that you may need to do on a daily basis with greater efficiency. The reason I say greater efficiency, you don't need a manual intervention, a greater accuracy, again, because there is no manual intervention. And perhaps it can also complete jobs which may have to be done out of scheduled hours. So let's say if you want to run a process 1 a.m., 2 a.m., you don't need to wake up at that particular point in time. That's what RPA is.
So one way to just, I just felt this interesting, and just seeing if as more and more companies, one of the ways in which companies can be ready to seize on this digital innovation is to convert a lot of the repetitive tasks into bots or /RPAs and reduce the dependence on human elements to conduct those tasks. At least the repetitive tasks in any and every organization can be completed and consummated using RPA technology.
Absolutely.
Is that one way to
Absolutely. And one of the reasons why this has gained more importance in today's parlance is because the business continuity strategy of many organizations took a hit. We never ever planned for such a strong pandemic that our staff will have zero ability to commute to work or go to office. And normally the recovery strategies are dependent on various locations. So we did assume that, let's say Delhi as a location may not be available. In that case, it's very easy for my colleagues who are in some other location, let's say in Mumbai or Chennai, they can pick that task. But RPA overall as a technology reduces or completely negates the dependence on a resource, because end of the day, it's the bot that's doing this. So if you have zero dependence on a specific resource, what that means is the task can be performed. Now, an interesting question that may come is, are you saying that with RPA, we will not need professionals at all? Well, that's not the case, because we would still need professionals to design the bot. We would still need professionals to program the bot and make any corrections or troubleshoot if there is any problem.
Absolutely.
That's where the overall RPA ecosystem is. From a digital innovation or adaptability of what we are doing right now, I would say banking is one sector which has really exhibited a very strong resilience and uptake of technology, which has actually meant that there's been almost nil impact on the banking services. I haven't seen any news article or any customer coming back and saying that, owing to pandemic, I couldn't transact with my branch, because today your bank actually is in your hands. It's the app that you deal with. So that's what my initial views would be.
Fantastic. That's very crisp, and thank you so much. So in fact, I should just add, before I move on to Mr. Uppal and then Mr. Satimo and Mr. Piyush, is for example, are the companies are the various sectors and various companies, are they seizing the opportunities and are they trying to go back to normal? Just for the benefit of all the students attending over here. For example, the number of jobs being posted in Naukri and the number of the amount of traffic that we get on Naukri is 90% back to normal. It's 90% levels of March. So across India, at least all industries, I'm sure that in some sectors that the number of jobs being posted and the vacancies is 20, 30, 40% less. But overall, I think the number of jobs being posted on Naukri by employers and the number of searches that employers do to look for candidates, they've already reached 90% of March levels. So looks like, despite the pandemic, companies have coped up already by hook or by crook, be it through very successful digital transformation or even ineffective ones moving towards successful digital transformation, but they are on the path of recovery, as evidenced by the fact that they're still hiring for people and they're still hiring for good people. So that is something which is not gotten shaken up in the economy yet. Mr. Utpal, the same question to you. How do you think organizations can be ready and make themselves ready to seize the opportunities which will erupt because of this pandemic? The same question that I asked Mr. Anish, I want your views on it, and then we move on to Mr. Satimo and Mr. Piyush.
Yeah, thank you, Nishant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, back to you.
Yeah. So I think I'll go a step back, and I'll start with, what is this crisis time, basically? See, normally if you look at change is the only constant in our lives, right? So we always encounter changes, different changes in our life. But the crisis is when the changes happens in a very rapid manner. Okay, so and it poses some kind of a threat to the very way we work, right? So now coming to in this crisis, is digitalization or digital things has picked up or something like that? I think yes, the importance of digitization has increased manifold in many industries, because now it is kind of a need of the day, because if they have to survive, they will have to innovate, they will have to go digital kind of thing. And I will agree with what Anish said. Like if you look at our banking sector, more and more banking services are being now exposed into our digital channels. So literally what you can do in your net banking today, almost everything you can do in your chatbot or in your WhatsApp banking kind of thing. So literally you can book your fixed deposit, and even in many banks during this pandemic, they have given that you can take some loan on your fixed deposit, take some overdraft on your, and that too within 2 minutes kind of thing.
But Mr. Chakraborty, so banking, sorry for interjecting, just to sort of, tap in, we've all got such less time, and we want to tap into the best wisdom that the panelists have. So banking is fairly something all of us have seen. Like you said, Mr. Anish said, we've all, the banking apps are there, the mobile is there. So we all know banking has not been disrupted. What about, for example, one very interesting perspective that came from Dr. Sheetal Jain is that, luxury segment, which we never thought will ever have to, there will not be a necessity for the luxury segment to be digitized, but that thrust has reached that sector also. In your opinion, so let me change the question a little bit. In your opinion, in your perspective, in your reading and your general knowledge, which industries do you think are going to be the most hardest hit? Which ones are less likely to be able to adapt and be ready for digital innovation? So which companies do you have which sectors do you have a pessimistic view for? So what's your perspective on that?
Yeah, so but there are two questions here. So number one is basically which is going to be the booming sector after or post-COVID kind of thing. That is definitely digital healthcare. Okay, so digital healthcare is going to be the booming field, because there are three reasons to it. So it is not because of the pandemic. Okay, pandemic is again a catalyst. Okay, so number one, if you look at in developing countries, the income of a person, average income of a person, and if you see the charges or the fee for a critical or non-critical care or any kind of hospitalization, there is a huge disparity. Okay, and if you want to bridge this disparity, digital healthcare is the only solution. Number two, in developed countries also, absolutely. In developed countries also, they are spending a lot in their healthcare, and it is kind of a burden for them. So they also want to. So here also, digital healthcare is the solution. Number three, worldwide. Okay, not only in developing countries, worldwide there is a huge shortage of doctors and healthcare professionals. And if we just, multiply it 5x or 6x also, if we produce that much of healthcare and healthcare professionals and doctors, in that way also will not be able to cater to this demand.
So you're saying the world has too many MBA students and way less doctors? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yeah, probably. So in that way, again, the digital healthcare things with more and more powerful solutions is the only solution, because you can, on one doctor today, if he is attending to probably 500 patients per day, he will be attend approximately 5,000 patients if you empower him with the digital tools. Okay, so that is one area which is going to be revolutionized, and it is going to be a golden era of digital healthcare post-COVID.
Fantastic. That's so good to hear.
Right. Number two, you say the worst. Second part, the worst. That is definitely your tourism hospitality, travels industry. Okay, so they are badly impacted, and there are some immediate solutions, but definitely long-term solutions. Nobody had that kind of answer. So tomorrow, if we hit by similar kind of a COVID or something like that, what this industry is going to do, I don't think so anybody has a concrete answer for that. Okay,
Fantastic.
and for that, definitely we will have to explore and we'll have to see.
Great,
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you for summing that up. Mr. Satimo Chatterjee, and then we quickly go to Mr. Piyush. I'm really actually waiting to hear what Mr. Piyush, as I'm waiting for every panelist. Mr. Satimo Chatterjee, so we'll move on to the execution part of the question now, right? And so we, right now, so far, we feel that, the pandemic will continue. Some organizations, some sectors, some organizations are more ready than others are. Some are going to benefit, some will suffer. But let's talk about the ones that will benefit. And in order to benefit, what are the executions? How would they need to innovate or execute in order to, manifest these sort of opportunities? We'll talk about value in that, we'll leave that question to Mr. Piyush as to how do you extract the maximum value and which sectors are able to, what strategies will extract the most value. But what I want from you is, what is the sort of 5-6 things that every organization should keep in mind so that they can work, so they have all the tools and the systems in place to embrace this digital innovation. So it could be small things also, right? For example, installing Teams on all the computers, more precision in documentation, more punctuality in attending meetings. Could be something as mundane, as simple and boring as that, to something grander as well. So what do you expect?
Yeah, no, that's a great great question, because generally the sentiments sometimes are not long term; those are short term, and certain things which shifts the human behavior may actually reset it back, right? So Dr. Sheetal started with highlighting the shift in behavior. So the online adoption has been so rapid, right, on every front, because of the push and not because of something which came in naturally. So the statistics say, which came out a few weeks back, that the growth in the e-commerce sector, the 10 years growth is now realized in 3 months. That's like an astounding figure, and all the e-com and the online penetration. If you look at the mobility penetration or the e-com penetration in India, it's still very small, about 3.5 to 4%. So which means the opportunity is only skyrocketing. The question is, how do you tap the positive aspects of which the pandemic has brought in? How do you keep on continuing that behavior, right? So although there's a huge adoption of e-commerce, there's something that is diluting, the loyalty is diluting, right? So now people are more open to different options. So how do companies, how do brands compete with each other, and how the loyalties be reinforced, right? So there has been SKU rationalization that is happening, where companies are moving their OPEX spend to CAPEX on digitalization and rationalizing the SKU, which are not of immediate demand. So a couple of things which will remain very important. One is the speed of execution, eliminating the internal silos that the companies have. Innovation should become part of the DNA, something like 3M does, right, as a part of the culture. So hopefully that will lie on the leadership's anvil to push that agenda forward. That innovation is not a one-time activity. Innovation should not be reactive, but should become proactive culture of the organization, right? Some of the sectors that we have seen, which took off with a tremendous growth potential, suddenly it came down. Mobility, as an example, Uber-like innovation, overnight, they are in a different shape. The Oyos of the world or the Airbnbs of the world, suddenly the innovation, which was kind of a marquee innovation of the day, took a tremendous shift and backlash. So how do they come back, or do they even come back, or are the other sectors which are going to get pushed because of that? So manufacturing, at least in India, has been in a very bad shape. Is the shift in behavior when the next normal becomes coming into the foray? Will it going to give boost to the manufacturing sector? Would the consumer behavior get a shift? Now, I'll just end by saying one thing. Given one of the sectors that I have been closely observing, VFS or the consumer banking for that matter, the 2008-2009 crisis was the reason for the crisis was different, right? To put it short, it was man-made, right? It was it was because of some wrong choices or wrong decision made, which had a cascading effect. And although it impacted several parts of the world, it was not of the magnitude that we are observing today. It wasn't a global pandemic as such, right? But because it was man-made, it took a lot of time to reset because the demand started going down. One positive sign here, and it's already the signs are being shown in many countries where they have already contained or flattened the curve, the demands are starting to go up, right? Like you mentioned, the demand for the job, right? Now is presenting 90% the below before the pandemic level, which is a very good sign, which is the organizations still have demand. It's just that probably the kind of agility that they need in the workforce that will change. So to sum it all, the question that you asked, one is speed, second is agility, third is innovation should be part of the DNA and culture, and the consumer behavior shift which has happened because of the pandemic. Now the organizations have a role to play that it becomes a habitual aspect of human behavior when it goes to consumption, both in the B2C as well as the B2B side.
So you're basically talking about not just an execution level of excellence at the execution level, but also cultural change, right? So just thinking digital, constantly innovating and adapting to whatever is happening, right? So being digital, having a digital culture throughout that permeates every single department of the organization.
Yeah.
Right?
It's a big opportunity. It's a big opportunity for the leaders to kind of tap on this because it can become a culture and become part of the DNA of the organizations. Absolutely.
Fantastic. Mr. Piyush Chauhan, sorry to keep you waiting for all this while, but the question is very similar. I think it's partly the same question that I asked Mr. Satimo, that what are the strategies, tactics that the companies need to employ to be able to seize these opportunities? And lastly, what is it that they should do so as to be able to extract more value and actually come up ahead at the end of 2-3 years after this pandemic, and for companies to look back and say that pandemic was one of the best things that actually happened to us because it helped us create and capture more value than we would have been able to otherwise. What are your sort of thoughts on that? Is that even possible? Do you think some companies will be able to do that? That to look back and say that we've been able to actually capture more value because of the pandemic and because of the digital revolution? Over to you, sir.
Sorry, yep. Yes, I was on mute. So I hope everybody's able to hear me now. I think there were very, very valid and good points which came from my co-panelists. Things like innovation needs to be a culture, digital needs to be a culture, how innovation and digital are going to transform the companies and the organizations. I may want to kind of now, if I may, want to summarize a little bit as to what the way I see things. And maybe if I may add, Mr. Nishant, is what is it for the students? Because I see that this is a more a student community, right? I think all valid, very valid points. I think everyone has spoken. So first part, I will try to talk about a few global macro trends that I see. The first macro trend is the so-called globalization as a philosophy is being challenged in the first time. In the last 3, 4, 5 decades that we have been seeing, this is the first time that somebody is really challenging, saying that is globalization really the right thing for us to move forward. Time will tell whether which direction we move towards, but there is obviously going to be a little bit more balance than what it was, saying that we will live in a very, very global world. I don't think that is the reality that we are moving towards. The second big macro trend which is coming, and I think it was coming for a little while now, is that the lines between industries are blurring, and they're blurring very fast. You cannot tell tomorrow, I'm pretty sure all my panelists will agree, that in 10 years, you will not know which company is in which sector. Correct. If somebody would say that Amazon is in e-commerce, they're just fooling. They are into a lot of things. And 10 years down the road, Reliance may not be a petrochem company. And so on and so forth. So what is happening is the lines between industries are blurring. And what is happening is, as a trend, the big are becoming bigger and the small are being squeezed. That is a big trend that we are seeing. Whether right or wrong, don't know, but that is a trend that you will see. The FANG stocks, the FANG companies are becoming bigger, larger day by day, and they're kind of, the FANG shops in itself are about 5th or 6th largest economy in the world. Yeah. So that trend will kind of create a lot of opportunities that we need to unfold, which is around digital innovation and things like that. And so what does it mean for the students? The student, it means that I would remember my MBA days, and people used to say, this is the business strategy session, this is operational strategy, this is my execution strategy. No longer those theories work. You need to be more holistic in your approach. Yeah. Correct. Analytics is no longer a domain of as I call it, just a data scientist. Analytics is an all-encompassing skill and a capability which is required by each and every employee in an organization to evolve. Even if you talk about, let's say, the BCGs and the McKinseys of the world, they understand that their 5-year, 3-year strategies is out of the window. Nobody wants them. Yeah. And so those high-end strategy consulting jobs are transforming themselves into digital consulting, into analytics consulting. And then how do you extract value from innovation? How do you extract value from doing agile projects? How do you extract value by experimentation? And so experimentation, innovation, agile processes, these are themes which I think the student should actually work on. And obviously padded with a certain set of skills. Let's say everybody needs to have a very, very strong grip on data. Yeah, everything in the coming days and years and decades would be revolving around data. So anything that you do, whether you are an HR specialist or an HR professional, whether you are a strategy professional, whether you are a marketing professional, and obviously those lines are blurring, and you will need to have a more holistic view around it, and you will need to pad it up with your ability to understand data and insights. That is absolutely the key factor that will determine and differentiate the students in the future. Coming to the last point, you talked about digital, and I think digital was always there. It's not that anything new we are talking about. All it has done is it has actually given a big boost. It's like now digital is sitting on a Rafale, yeah, and they have to run on supersonic speeds to basically really create that value. And so what happens when the Rafales are firing at full speed? Not everybody can cope up with the Rafale. Yeah, I mean the speed. And so what it means is there would be a certain set of organizations which will go at supersonic speed and keep on becoming bigger. And so people who are not able to adapt fast, organizations which are not able to adapt fast, organizations which are not able to innovate and experiment on a very, very supersonic speed, they will be the ones who would be left behind. And you would see a very different world which will be captured and dominated by the pure digital. I would not say pure digital, but basically an omni-channel player from a retail context. People who are able to seamlessly merge the physical and the digital worlds and create an experience to the customer. Just coming to the last point, the way I see things is the obsession towards customer centricity. And people may want to, I keep on giving examples of what is the mission of Amazon. I would want people to go back and read that out. It is never to become the largest e-com player in the world. It is never to become the largest media house in the world. It is to become the most customer obsessed or customer focused company in the world. And that actually is where the differentiation lies. The differentiation is around bringing customer at the heart of doing anything and everything, creating an opportunity, creating an experience, creating an offering which is unique to that customer, so that there is customer experience and there is customer delight, which will then differentiate you from others who are offering products, services, and things like that, which are things of the past, and you are able to differentiate and take it forward.
Excellent. Fantastic. Thank you for summing that up so well, Mr. Piyush. I think you're right. This entire discussion is for the benefit of the students. Ultimately, in the next 15 minutes, we also have to come up with a few takeaways that we can let the students walk away with. A couple of one-liners from each panelist, or some books or some articles that you might want to recommend. So I'll just come to that in a second. But I would just love to add that, yes, like everybody said, everything has to be in the digital world. The center stage of the digital world is data. The center teller is data, and it's very important for every department, whether these students want to become go into the sales team. This is something I spoke about last year, and not just me, the whole panel, and the year before last also in the same forum, Conventus, that analytics and is no longer the bastion of the data scientist, like you said, and it's something that the HR team and the product management, CEO, everybody has to do. And analytics does not mean having fancy softwares like Tableaus or learning how to code in R or Python. Even if digital is a way of thinking, and it starts off with at least the basic skills in Excel, right? So if I always personally feel that in this day and age, 80% of the world, barring 20% who really do have no interest in it whatsoever, but most people, should you have the capability, you must develop an average to an above average skill in manipulating, processing, and absorbing information using Excel. Extremely important. So, and I think Excel, digital thinking, so ultimately every human interaction is an exchange of information, right? And I would want the students to, this would be my sort of takeaway before I move on to the panelists so that we can wrap this up. Every human, whether when we do any business transaction, when we buy a house, when I tell some Amazon that send me this book, or I go to a bank and they say, please pass my money to somebody else. Every human interaction is on the basis of an information being passed on. Information is in the form of two things, numbers and text. That's all it is. So to be able to process, break that information down and store it in databases, to be able to, so you take a piece of information and break it and store into databases, or you're able to take all these broken pieces of, not broken, but different elemental digital pieces of information and bring them together to create value. That's information and content engineering. So I would urge the students after the seminar to go up and look up these words: information engineering, content engineering, digital thinking. So just like this, design thinking, you should look up on digital thinking. Actually, I've been, well, it's not a plug, but this is something which I've been teaching in ISB and SPJ in Bombay for the last 4 or 5 years, which is digital thinking and product thinking, which actually talks about how every student can begin to think in these directions that Mr. Piyush Chauhan is talking about. A couple of more examples. Recently, I read a couple of very fascinating books by Mr. Saurabh Mukherjee. He's a very eminent and successful finance professional, investment manager rather. So from that, I learned a couple of things that the students may or may not be aware of. Asian Paints is a brand that we're all aware of. Bajaj Finance is a brand we're all aware of. HDFC Bank and Kotak Mahindra Bank. So Saurabh Mukherjee in all of his interviews and all of his books say that Asian Paints, Bajaj Finance, HDFC Bank, Kotak Mahindra Bank, these are all, they've been analytics companies, data intelligence companies for the last 20, 30 years. Kotak Mahindra is only obviously 15, 20 years old, but all the other companies have been, they are primarily data intelligence companies. They just happen, Asian Paints just happens to be selling paint. Bajaj Finance just happens to be providing loans to businesses, but they are basically, their core strength is the fact that they know how to break that data down, store it, and then create value out of that. And I think that is my sort of takeaway from whatever the panelists said, that is the skill that all the students have to work on, that they have to develop, that no matter which company they go on to, I think every 90% of the sectors in the world today, in going forward, will be data intelligence companies, right? Analytics companies. And they just happen to be selling shoes or selling books or selling paint. So yeah, I'll go back to Dr. Sheetal Jain. Dr. Sheetal Jain, any closing thoughts? And I would want you, in case you have an answer to this question, I would love it if you can recommend some books or some articles to students that you might have read in the recent past that could accelerate their awareness and knowledge towards business transformation, data science, business intelligence, and analytics. So Dr. Sheetal Jain, then I'll move on to Mr. Utpal Chakraborty, then Mr. Anish Agarwal, then Satimo Chatterjee, and Mr. Piyush. Same question to all of you. Dr. Sheetal Jain, over to you.
So basically, I would, co-panelists have so beautifully put their thoughts on it, and it has been so enlightening. I'm pretty sure students must have got a lot of insights from it. And as you also just said that, having data itself by no means can create wonders. It is how you extract insights from it. how you can get, because sometimes you have the data, but data just in the form of numbers would not work. How we can use it, because that is going to decide the future of the companies, that can provide the edge to the companies, and that could differentiate them from the competitors. How you can understand your consumers through that data, and how you can provide the consumers what they want without having them said that. And omni-channel, like I think Professor Piyush said, that it's not just about being digital and physical in silos. It has to be a seamless, bespoke experience given to the consumers through a fictionless omni-channel experience. That's very important. Understanding their pain points, deconstructing the entire consumer journey, and then each point where and what we can do to improve is what each organization should understand, and they should invest in the technology that empowers human being.
Can you just, Dr. Sheetal, can you just repeat what you just said? Because I feel I could not have put that across better. I think that symbolizes the entire crux and the entire takeaway of this entire panel. What did we just said in the last 30 seconds? You may not exactly remember, but just repeat that. From the word deconstruction. I think that's what I would stress to any student who's not paying attention right now. Just pay attention to what you just said.
I was just saying that, it's very important, customer centricity, as I think one of the panelists rightly pointed out. Everything, we should be like, I think Professor Piyush pointed out, that obsession for the customers as Amazon, we would say. So understanding the entire consumer journey and deconstructing it so that we can understand the pain point, and accordingly we create our strategies. And digital is not just for the sake of it, but that will be an enabler for the organizations. That will help, that will empower human beings. As one of the panelists rightly said, that all the redundant jobs, repetitive things can be done by the bots. But the human element is always and will always remain very important, because the role of the human beings will change, perhaps. Even if I talk about luxury industry, and if I talk about the in-store experience, as you said, it's about high touch, right? But then, having technology in the stores doesn't mean we don't want human beings. We want these sales associates to turn their roles from being just cashiers to concierge, to become consultants, to advise their consumers, to provide that hyper personalization with the help of the data and with the help of these AI, VR technologies. So that is the way forward, I believe. And I would like to summarize, like as quoted by Intel CEO Andy Grove, that bad companies are destroyed by the crisis, good companies survive them, but the great companies are improved and reinvented by these crises. So I believe these crises are actually opportunity, not for just these businesses and organizations, but for each one of us as individuals to improve ourselves, to think beyond the obvious. And as students, I believe that, this is the right time for you to explore the new things, go beyond your comfort zones, read more and more. And as you said, like there have been a lot of McKinsey articles, there have been a lot of, like in case of my luxury domain, Bain & Company articles, they have been, just read more and more and more to understand what will be the future. And I truly believe that today the reader, tomorrow the leader. I mean, reading is the most powerful thing, and this is what I'll advise all the students. Do spend some time reading every day, not just in your sector or your domain, but you have to be holistic. As I said, it's not today only about marketing or HR. It's a multidisciplinary, and this will be the trend going forward. So that is what would be my thoughts.
Loved hearing that. I'm sure a lot of the students may not have captured the. I hope they have, but I think I captured every single word and every sort of nuance behind that word that you said. I think it's just dripping with wisdom. So thank you so much. Absolutely correct. And I love that line, today a reader, tomorrow a leader. So yeah, thank you so much. And moving on to Mr. Anish Agarwal, what do you think, what your sort of closing takeaway points for the students might be? And as if you can just, in case not every one of us is a big reader of books and everything, or if you read any books in the recent past that you could recommend to the students, and that'll be great.
So Nishant, so perhaps my inputs would be, while we've spoken about the enterprise, we've spoken about the technology, we've spoken about innovation. I think one aspect that we also need to understand is the people impact, the impact on the professionals, the impact on the jobs, and will the current jobs remain the same? I think that's something that we should also be talking about. But before I get into that, to answer your second question first, in terms of the book, there's one book that I would definitely like to recommend, and this is only because everyone's talking about AI, data, the impact of AI. There is a book which is written by Gary Kasparov, Deep Thinking. I would really encourage the students, if they haven't read this book so far, please do read this book. Very beautifully written by Gary, who is one of the leading chess players in the world. Talks about his defeat and his personal experience of what it feels like being defeated when you feel you are invincible. Talks about how man's interacting with machine, and it's not just about the machine taking over the world. End of the day, it's still the man who has made the machine. So if you want, you can definitely read that book. So
Excellent. Excellent.
sorry, go ahead, Nishant.
No, go ahead. I think that's a lovely book. I've heard about it. I've not read that book, but I've heard much about it. So yeah, I think it's a very strong recommendation, and I would also urge all the students to check that book out. Yeah, back to you, Mr. Anish.
Thank you. So talking about the overall crisis, I would say if you look at where we are right now, overall job losses is the greatest direct impact of COVID-19 crisis, which will be a long-term effect and impact on the economy, leading to slow growth. And we've seen that already. And this phenomena is global, not just limited to India or any specific country. And as the pandemic has stretched, we are now staring at an infinitely longer period. The corporate boards are required to reassess business models and skills required to deliver on the mandates of revised strategy, touching every head and shoulder of every function and vertical across the organization. And I would say workforce is one of the most significant factor in which determines an organization's competitiveness. Knowledge, competency, creativity, innovation, and leadership are perhaps some of the key ingredients which we today require to meet the demands of the current turbulent environment. Enterprises needs to adopt this change by means of targeted measures to retain and create jobs and continue to upskill to ensure people are on track with the changing dynamics of the world. And there are few jobs which would perhaps be more in demand, and even from a skill standpoint. And the reason I wanted to cover is because we've got majority of attendees as students. It's always good to bring them up to speed of what the market's looking like, what it will look like for next, not just for 1 or 2 years, but from a sustenance standpoint for next 5 to 10 years as well. As an example, risk analysts will be in greater demand for assessing and analyzing overall potential risk. The world's now learned that there could be any risk of any nature which may crop up at any given point in time. We also talk about data scientists, data analysts. These jobs will definitely be in greater demand as well, because everyone would like to understand a potential trend or a problem using the techniques and theories drawn from many fields in the context of math, science, computing, and domain knowledge. Data visualization definitely is going to pick up, has picked up already. Each day when we wake up, we read the newspaper and we see a new jazzy visual representation which appear in the national dailies. At times, I myself fail to understand what exactly is the media is trying to explain, but eventually it's about playing with the data and trying to visualize it in a more meaningful manner. The AI and machine learning experts will definitely be in greater demand and will continue to play an important role in combating the pandemic, as we know that these applications would be in greater demand. There's been a significant improvement using AI and machine learnings, from a healthcare standpoint, as an example, in identifying the right medication, prediction, screening, forecasting, contact tracing, apparently, and vaccine development as well. And last but not the least, cybersecurity and cloud computing will definitely be in demand. And one of the aftermaths of lockdown has been greater interest in digitization, which means greater demand for cloud-based ready solutions. And while there are strong positives of cloud technology, there are certain challenges as well, because these always gets complemented with cyber attacks, hacking, identity thefts, and phishing attacks as well, and which has brought greater demand for individuals who've got good understanding of cybersecurity and cloud computing. So in a nutshell, I would say enterprises definitely have done their bit, and it's all about survival of the fittest. The ones who've got an appetite to innovate, to adapt, will definitely exist, or else they will perish for sure. From an individual standpoint, it is equally important on us as well to keep ourselves up to date, upskill with not just how the organizations are moving, but also how the technology is evolving. And I would say it is important that all of us keep ourselves updated. And one thing that I can share, the way I keep myself updated is I've set up a Google alert on my favorite keywords, so that just like the way I get access to my daily news, I also get an email in my inbox every day on chosen subjects like artificial intelligence, data analytics, and it has a good selection of news stories. And it takes us 10 minutes to skim through those news stories and keep myself. And it really, really helps. So
Awesome.
That's for me, Nishant.
That's very practical takeaways, Mr. Anish. Thanks so much. I'm just quickly going to, I think Mr. Piyush has said he has a hard stop, so I want 3-4 of his minutes before he leaves. I know we have about 4-5 minutes left. So, Mr. Piyush, can you just wrap up? What do you think are your? I think one of the best points that you brought up was that the stronger will get even stronger, the big will become bigger, because Amazon is not just an e-commerce company, and I think we are seeing that it's going to happen in the next 20 years in India as well. We'll see just a few 10-20 companies dominate the entire economy, I believe so. And I think a lot of that is going to happen because the companies which are able to embrace the digital are the ones that are more likely to do that than the ones that don't embrace the digital. So I just wanted to sort of emphasize and underscore that point, which I felt is a very valid, important one that you said. I want to acknowledge that, and then go on to you and ask you for your closing notes. What are your takeaways, some books, articles, or anything else, like Mr. Anish and Mr. Sheetal Jain said? What are your takeaways for the students to walk away with?
I'll just I'll just kind of summarize. While Anish recommended that book, I did a very quick look at it. Deep thinking, and the tagline is so relevant. It clearly shows where machine intelligence ends and human creativity begins. And I think I would want to urge the students to kind of say that it is not the data, and I think Dr. Sheetal was very apt in saying that it is not the numbers which make any sense. Okay, analytics is not about numbers. Obviously, the foundation, data as a soil, data as oil, whatever you call it, is very much relevant. But it is about dreaming with that data. It is about bringing your creativity with that data. And that is the skill which is there. And so what is needed for dreaming? You cannot dream when you are stressed. You cannot dream when you are tensed. So what it requires to dream is to have a very calm and a soothing mind. Yeah. So I would urge all the students to also take care of while there have been a lot of talk about taking care of your body, I think we as a human civilization have not taken care of our mind so well. And that is where neuroscience is coming in. Neuroscience is becoming so much stronger. I would urge at least the next generation to make sure that they take care of their brain from a neuro perspective, to have those creative juices flowing around so fast so that we are able to create a world which is very different from what we have created till now. So keep your agility towards mind, try to experiment new things, try to kind of give exercising your mind. It's not by doing just puzzles and things like that, but actually calming your mind. It is not always a busy mind, is a kind of as a mind which will not be able to dream much. So I would urge students to take care of their mind. There are a lot of mindfulness practices which are out there. Please go and adopt those to make sure that you have a very, very long journey in terms of dreaming and creating wonders out of the data.
Fantastic. That's so beautifully put. In fact, that reminds me of one of my favorite topics, which I stress upon my workshops and lectures, is and which I think the book's tagline talks about as well, which Mr. Piyush also talked about. So there's two concepts I would want students to Google. One is known as divergent thinking. The other is known as convergent thinking. If one of you has read that book by Malcolm Gladwell, that's where I learned it from 10, 15 years ago. So look it up, divergent thinking, convergent thinking. Convergent thinking helps you solve, so what we are taught the world over till the age of 2025 in schools and colleges is convergent thinking. But what really solves, but creativity, real problem solving, empathy, calmness of the mind, Piyush is talking about, Mr. Piyush is talking about, all these things come from divergent thinking. Well, not that convergent thinking does not bring calmness to the mind, it does. But in the future, students need to hone their divergent thinking skills as well, which comes from the arts, the humanities, from cultural activities, from meditation, from deep breathing. And without that, you will not be able to find problems that are worth solving, and you will not be able to find creative solutions to problems. So you need divergent thinking along with convergent thinking. So thank you, Mr. Piyush.
Thank you. I need to leave. Thank you. It was nice speaking to you, and bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Mr. Piyush. So I'll move on to Mr. Satimo, and then we'll have Mr. Utpal wrap up. So Mr. Satimo, same question. How would you want the students to walk away with 1 or 2 minutes of the wrap up? And
yeah, I think
along with that, if you can recommend some books or articles.
Yeah, sure. I think pretty much everything is covered by the group and panelists beautifully, right? About the takeaways. I just throw a couple of keywords just to add to it. That one thing that we need to kind of remember always that that it's gonna be about lifelong learning, right? Because that's how you'll be able to embrace the change, and the change, as somebody rightly pointed out before, that it's gonna be only constant here on. So you'll be able to wire your mind for that notion that I have to be continuously learning. Critical thinking is going to be a skill that will always be celebrated across organizations, across the span of your life. Ability to apply oneself, connecting the dots, and embrace changes. Right? So these are the it is the pandemic is kind of reinforcing all these things. These things were always there and always appreciated, and not only in the professional world but in the personal world as well. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the reading content and the books, and that's the revolution which is happening all the time, right? The world is so interconnected digitally that you have everything that you need to know in your fingertips, and it's the ability for connecting the dots. But if I were to recommend a couple of books, right? One book that I recently read was Hit Refresh. It came out about a few years back by Satya Nadella on his journey, how he transformed Microsoft, and what a visionary, right? I mean, he can actually paint the picture of the future and then apply that in his way of thinking and transform changes within the organization, and how he transformed Microsoft. It will give you a lot of perspective. And the second one is an Israeli author called Yuval Noah Harari. Yeah, so he has a trilogy of books, and he started with Sapiens. It's pretty good. It actually, somebody talked about focusing on the brain, and he actually historically cites a lot of example at how the brain got transformed along the way, and he's a visionary as well, right? So yeah, I mean, those are a couple of takeaways for the students.
No, absolutely. I think I always, so when although this is a little bit outside the context of this immediate context of this panel discussion, but you're absolutely right. I mean, when people ask me as to how to become more effective product managers and more effective data scientists, I recommend them Yuval Harari's books. I tell them to go read Jared Diamond's books, Guns, Germs, and Steel. I tell them to read books on climate change, like The Weather Makers, books like Freakonomics, which looks at, like joining the dots. So Freakonomics is a wonderful book that came out 20 years ago, where I think Stephen Levitt, or with somebody else, I've heard the name of the author, he looks at patterns of, he joins the dots of various data points from disparate aspects of social data, and is able to provide you with insights that would have escaped the superficial sort of, if you looked at it casually, you would not see a pattern, but he goes deeper into the data and finds patterns in society which organizations and people and individuals can benefit from. So it's a wonderful book. So you're absolutely right. I think Yuval Harari's books and these books are very important to understand how humans make decisions, right? So if you have to succeed in a post-pandemic world and digital world, it is important to even have perspectives. It's just not R, Python, and Tableau. It is important to understand how Satya Nadella thinks. It's important to understand how Yuval Harari thinks, because we also have that thinking. Because until that thinking capability comes into the fore, the data really can't do anything, like Dr. Sheetal said, right? The data itself can't do. You need to have a perspective and a wisdom as to what to do with that data. And that what to do, you get from books like these, Yuval Harari's and Satya Nadella's. So fantastic, great, point that you sort of brought up. Mr. Utpal, how would you like to sort of wrap up, and what are the takeaways you would want the students to go away with?
Yeah, thank you, Nishant. So Probably, the other panelists had already talked about the skills, books, and all those things. So I'll talk a little bit about, because I keep on advocating mainly the startup world and the startup culture, because many of the students now, they are coming out from their colleges and they want to build their own startup rather than going for any kind of job. And I really appreciate that, because that is very much needed today. So my recommendation is today, if you want to innovate in any field, you need not be from the same field. I'll give you example again from the healthcare and medicine. So most of the innovations happening in the medical science today, what you see today, are actually not done by the medical or the healthcare professionals. These are either done by robotics people, artificial intelligence people, the other fields like the physicist, the actual chemist, kind of thing. So if you really have a passion to do innovation in any field, today it is the time you can jump into any field and you can really do innovation. So that is number one. And as other panelists already mentioned, like a 4 years degree or a 6 years degree will not be sufficient for a lifelong employment. Okay, so it will be like you'll have to learn throughout your life to be relevant for the industry, and in that way only you can do. About the books, honestly speaking, although I write books, but I read very less books. Rather, I look at YouTube videos like TEDx speakers and all those things.
Yeah.
Okay, but I would recommend. It is not like promotion, but I would recommend my book, Artificial Intelligence for All, which is published by BPB Publication. Why? That is because it gives a lot of Indian context. Okay,
Right.
how
Right.
artificial intelligence and data science can actually, how we can use it in the Indian context. So that is the main purpose or the main emphasis on that particular book. So definitely they can read it. Where I have mentioned the AI superpower, the leaders and the contenders, okay, which is the first chapter, wherein I talked about like the different countries like China, US, and all, how they are implementing or how they are focusing on AI kind of thing. So they'll get an idea of actually what is happening in different countries and where India stands today and how India. Our startups, because we are already an IT superpower, right? If you look at, literally, if you look at, but how we can become an AI superpower or probably a superpower of this new gen technologies. So that they will come to know. So and definitely I will recommend a lot of TEDx these things, because they are within 18 minutes you get a complete comprehensive think of a person who probably is expert on that particular subject. So that is very, very important.
Absolutely. So I think you brought up a point, Mr. Utpal, which is again very close to my heart, which I would want to reiterate and underline for the benefit of the students. So there's a very nice article written by Paul Graham. Paul Graham is the the Y Combinator guy. It's he's an angel investor, fund manager, technology leader based in the US. So he wrote an article 16 years ago, The Power of the Marginal. So I would recommend just go to Google, just put in The Power of the Marginal, Paul Graham, just read that blog. It specifically talks about what Mr. Utpal just talked about, that most of the innovations around the world in every industry has happened from outsiders. It has never happened from inside the industry. People from outside the industry have come in and disrupted the industry. In my personal example as well, most of the algorithms that you see running on Naukri now after 2010 were all designed by me and one or two other people. And I came from the oil industry. I was drilling for oil and offshore oil rigs, right? I did my MBA, and when I came in and I saw how Naukri, the algorithms of Naukri, they needed a huge overhaul. The CEO said, Nishant, could you do something about these algorithms? And I said, so although in that company, there were a lot of computer programmers and data scientists were already there in the company, they had not thought of how to re-engineer those algorithms. But some two of us in the product team who had never worked in the internet industry before that, we were the ones who redesigned the algorithms and made the algorithms of Naukri what they are today. This happens in every industry. I'm not saying that that is anything new, but the moment you get an outsider's perspective, so fresh thinking, being able to join the dots, and you know, how can you always be an outsider if you keep disrupting yourself? If you keep disrupting yourself, you're always an outsider to yourself, right? You can keep reinventing yourself. So just like an outsider can reinvent a company, you can reinvent yourself if you keep looking at yourself and if you keep revisiting and re-educating yourself with newer perspectives. So I think that's the takeaway with what Mr. Chakraborty talked about. And one book that I would personally recommend is Paul Graham's book again. It's known as Painters and Hackers. It is all the essays that he's ever written. In my personal experience, Paul Graham has been the best sort of influence in my life. And his way of thinking is what I try and espouse. Now, if you just to give you an elaboration on why the book is known as Painters and Hackers, painters is a synonym for right brain thinking, because painters are creative people, and hackers are people who write code, right? Computer programmers, which is left brain thinking, or maybe left to right. I mean, getting it wrong, but you get the point that painters refers to creative thinking, and hacking refers to problem-solving ability. So hackers are convergent thinking, and painters are divergent thinking. And Paul Graham is one of the best, finest examples of a person who practices both divergent and convergent thinking. So I would highly recommend, that would be my takeaway to you guys, that buy that book, download that book, Painters and Hackers by Paul Graham. His English is a bit difficult at times because he loves words. He's so good with words that he plays around well with them. It might intimidate some of you, but you know, just power through. He's a gem of a writer and a gem of a thinker. So yeah, I think so I'll just open the forum for the last 1 minute if Dr. Sheetal Jain, Mr. Piyush, Satimo, Mr. Utpal, if you guys, Anish, Mr. Anish, if you just want to add anything, you know, the floor is for you for a minute, and then I'll wrap up. Anything anybody wants to add for the benefit of the students?
So, Nishant, I would just like to say in the end to the students that, you know, as quoted by Charles Darwin, that it is neither the strongest nor the most intelligent that survives. It is rather the one who adapts that survives. So please, all the students, keep keep adapting, keep to this space with this new world. Have a complete, your own lifestyle in a way that every day you take away something new. And as said by a few of the members, mindfulness, relaxing your mind so that you can think something big. You will be starting your new journeys, perhaps joining being an entrepreneur or your jobs or further education. So I believe all this, just having that kind of a spirit in you will help you move ahead. Thank you so much.
Excellent. So yeah, Shreya, what do we have next? We have a Q&A session for 10 minutes and then 5-10 minutes, whatever. Shreya, what's
yes,
next?
We will just take a few questions from the students. Palak?
Yeah. Tejaswi Anand, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Tejaswi?
Yeah, once again, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, so first of all, very good afternoon to all the panelists. My question is a little generic. Anyone can take it up. So analytics is being used in credit risk management and bank automation. However, there is another risk that it poses. Sensitive data is being exposed and it may cause cyber risk. So how do you create a balance between both of these?
Satimoy, Anish, anyone of you can answer?
I can answer that question.
Yes.
So I would say that I'm not sure if two parts are interlinked. So cyber risk and credit risk are not interlinked at all. What we understand by credit risk is more about the risk that a bank may be exposed owing to non-performing assets, which perhaps is now the highest because whatever government schemes we are currently witnessing, there is a time-bound point in time when these government schemes will end. And that's where we would need to really check, test the resilience of the customers, that what is their ability to pay back to the bank once these interest holidays or moratorium periods end. That's what we define that risk. But in terms of cyber risk, I would say that risk is not just applicable to banking. That's applicable to any enterprise which perhaps hosts its data on cloud, or even not on cloud, even in physical estate, local estate. There will be such imminent threats always. What really matters is what is the
But I think,
level
Mr.
of
Anish, I think why Tejasvi must be asking that question is because in case of banking and money involved, the cyber risk actually it can lead to material loss to people's lifelong savings and investments. Otherwise, in other sectors, maybe there's less risk. So maybe in that sense, is if rephrasing the question, in banking industry, I think what Tejasvi is saying, the cyber risk probably can have the stakes are very high. So what would the banking
Yes, sir.
industry be doing in order to manage that risk? Tejasvi, is that correct?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Definitely.
okay?
Back to
I would say the best way is to encrypt and contain the data within the estate, and ensuring there are right data privacy protocols in place, data safety protocols in place, which means not just the encryption bit, but there are appropriate firewalls and use of technology which ensures an outside element doesn't get access to the data which sits within the bank's estate. That's my view. Utpal, given you're more closer to the Indian banking industry, I'll welcome your thoughts as well.
Yeah, Nishant, you may. So I'll, Nishant, can I?
Yeah, absolutely, of course.
Yes. Okay. So basically, I'll give you an example. So nowadays, the cyber security in banking is more like an enterprise immune system. Okay. So I'll give you an example. So how it is like completely AI-based kind of tools are used in banking. So how our immune system works? Our immune system, if you look at normally our DNA, these are information, right? And a lot of viruses every day and bacteria, millions of viruses and bacteria, they attack on a daily basis. But our immune system is intelligent enough to look at the normal and abnormal behavior of different attacks. And accordingly, it puts different kind of defense systems there. So now in banking, the cyber security is completely enterprise immune system, wherein we have got AI engines, basically machine learning engines and all, which 24/7 looks at your credit card transactions, your debit card transactions, your network behavior, whatever the users are doing, what your printers, what you are printing in your printers, your mobile devices and everything. And if it sees any kind of abnormality in that, it automatically raises a flag and sends it to the administrator. Similarly, what it does is there is something called antigen, okay, which basically whenever there is a malicious connection coming to your server or your network, it automatically starts cutting those. So today, the banking network in terms of any kind of cyber attack is much secure than if you just look back, say probably 3 years, 5 years back, because these are all the machine learning powered systems. Okay, these are not at all human monitoring kind of systems. So it monitors 24/7.
Excellent. So Tejasvi, I'm sure such questions don't actually have 2-minute answers. They probably take a day or two to answer. But I hope Anish and Utpal were able to address some part of the answer to your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure. Shreya, any other question? Palak, any other question? Let's do 2-3 more questions so we can wrap up by 1 o'clock, maybe in the next 6-7 minutes. And then because there's something else after that as well. So we'll just wrap up in the next 2 more questions.
Yes, sir. Ojasvi Khattar, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah. First of all, a very good afternoon to all the panelists and the moderator. Sir, my question is, earlier the analytics was the main focus, but now analytics has also been automated on so many fronts, and there is a transition to advanced analytics. So how to manage this transition for in the student's point of view?
I would say that's a very vague question. I'm not sure. Does anybody want to take it? There's no specific answer to that. But Utpal, Dr. Sheetal, Dr. Anish, Dr. Satimo.
I think, if I can understand, I think what you are trying to ask that how do students keep up with the progress in the field and how it is rapidly changing and what do they look for?
No, what he's asking probably is, I mean, we talked about analytics. Now it is like advanced analytics. So what is the basically transition from analytics to advanced analytics? So probably he's talking about the diagnostic analytics and descriptive analytics. to the predictive and the prescriptive analytics?
Yeah. So I can then Truthful, you can take up. I can just give up my point of view. So yes, it's kind of broadly it's divided into descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive as the streams. And then if you look at different kinds of analytics, so if you do customer analytics, then you look at customer life cycle on an organization point of view as how do you get better at acquiring customer or acquisition management. Then existing customer management, growth, and then retaining the customer and the various activities that happens there, and the tools, techniques, technology is constantly progressing. There's a revolution that is happening in the open source area like R, Python, TensorFlows of the world. So obviously, what will be needed is connecting the dots and how do you keep up with the advancement in the field, and hence how do you actually be connected with the context becomes very important. And tools are there, right? And we are kind of progressing in the way that perhaps coding skills will not be that paramount anymore, because we are moving from low code to no code platforms. There are tools and the automations are progressing by the day, right? So ability to contextualize, ability to understand the business problem, and then describe, interpret, and then understanding the feedback loop will be very important always, right, going forward.
Can you just reiterate the 4 words here, the 4 kinds of analytics you talked about, so kids can.
Yeah. So sure. So it kind of broadly you can classify into diagnostics, so which kind of deals into what happened in the past. So you look at the data and state the fact in a way which can be easily understood, like reporting, visualization elements, and so forth. Gets into descriptive field where you start describing, gets into hypothesis testing. You formulate certain hypotheses and then either validate or reject the hypothesis. You need to be very good at formulating those on a business context. That all right, if a customer had tried it, here are the 3 potential reasons that I could see why that happened, and then you start validating or rejecting that with the data. Then you get into the predictive space where you start predicting what is going to happen, right, based on what has happened in the past. Where the assumption is the future is going to look like the past, right? Which may not be true always. So hence you need to be creative enough to kind of bring your understanding to the forefront. That all right, here are the potential changes which can happen, and then comes the prescriptive. That all right, if you are able to identify what happened, you are going to predict what is to prescribe actions so that you can optimize the business context.
Diagnostic, descriptive, predictive, and prescriptive. That's from the chain from how analytics was 5-10 years ago to where it's going to go in the future.
Yes.
Just to read up on this, and there's tons of blogs and books about it as well. So we'll just read,
And lot of algorithmic progression is happening, right? So many of you may have heard about Explainable AI, right? So many of you would say that AI is a black box, so nobody knows what's going to happen, what's happening inside the box. But the businesses, the regulators alike, they would like to know what's going on in the box. So a lot of research going on in that field as well, where there are algorithms which can interpret the black box as well, and many other,
I know it's interesting. I'm sure given a chance, if Timoy, Rupal, or any of the panelists can speak for hours on these topics. These are topics which are very enchanting, very fertile, very deep. But right now we only have space for like 1 minute or 2 minute answers. So we'll just take one more question. Hopefully that was useful this week for you. And Shreya, just 1 or 2 more questions.
Thank you.
One more. Let's just wrap it up now.
Yeah, we'll just squeeze in one more question. Sheena Ablaka, can you please ask your question?
Good afternoon, everyone. Actually, Piyush sir did mention this, but I wanted to know that in the coming future, which fields would have more scope? Would that be strategic, like strategic HRM, or the analytics, the HR data analyst? So where would we see more scope for us to have a career in or progress?
And what are the two options you gave?
Strategic and the data analyst.
I think, I don't know who wants to. Dr. Sheetal, do you want to take that? Utpal, Mr. Anish? It's a very broad, it's a very 50,000 feet view kind of a question. So will strategy over the analytics, which one's going to be more? Well, let me tell you my answer. I think they're both going to be equally important. Strategy asks the question, what needs to be worked on, what's the priority, and why do we need to work on it? And analytics tells you which cohort, which segment, which market do we need to work on, and how much discounts we need to give, what is inefficient, what is not efficient. So yeah, I think both are important. One can't say what is going to be more important than the other. But yeah, what do the panelists say? That strategy versus analysis.
So I would say it has to be the right balance between the horizontal and the vertical. Strategy is the horizontal, which cuts across all the functions. So every function, every department in an organization would need a strategy, be it human resource, be it finance, be it marketing, be it sales. And strategy, is and then comes the vertical, the functions. I would say there's no specific role which talks about just the strategy where you're not dealing with any other element of the business. So business knowledge and strategy goes hand in hand. Analytics is perhaps an enabler. If you know analytics, you can perhaps be good or empower your decisions with data, back your decisions with data, so that the stakeholders are easy to convince. They actually, as opposed to you writing a 100-page literature review, you can summarize all your findings in a couple of charts, and that's where your strategy can talk itself. So it has to be right balance, and it's data is more of a tool which enables you to make decisions quicker. That's my view, Nishant.
So for example, just to give you a much simpler example, let's say you want to become a marathon runner, and then you say, no, to become a marathon runner, I need to lose some body weight, I need to build some more muscle, and I need to develop better lung capacity so that I can run like 20, 30 kilometers. Now, in order to do that, you'll have to get up in the morning, you'll have to get a fitness trainer, you'll have to get the right shoes, you'll have to find a road which does not have much traffic so that you can run there for longer. All these are sort of strategic decisions, right? Now, in order to do that, you'll also have to change your diet, and you'll have to make choices like, do I eat food A or food B or food C? Which one has more calorific value? Which one gives me more protein? Which one adds up much more muscle power on my legs? Which supplements should I take so that my breathing capacity can improve, so on and so forth. And then you go through all that data to decide that, should I eat A or should I eat B? If you want to be a bodybuilder, on the other hand, a weightlifter, you'll actually choose to eat B. But if you want to be a marathon runner, you'll choose to eat A, for instance, right? So the foods that you eat, the times that you get up on, the number of hours that you train for, all these have a certain correlation with the goal that you have in mind. So whether you want to be a marathon runner or a wrestler or a bodybuilder is a strategic decision. And what you eat, the calorific values of the foods you eat, how much you should eat, and what impact it will have on your body, that kind of analysis is like the analytics, right? So you need both of these to go hand in hand together. So analytics in that sense becomes the enabler to what your strategic goal is. Fine. Just Sheena, does that answer your question?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm sure there's no. So if you answer the question is, which one has more scope, which one will have more jobs and better salaries? The answer is both will be equally important. That's really the takeaway.
Sir, I was linking it to the HR thing.
Okay, in HR. Well, in HR also it's the same thing, right?
Or HR analyst. We could differentiate between the two.
Okay. Maybe I missed that part. I apologize for having missed that part of the question. Does anybody want to add to that? Dr. Sheetal Jain or Satimo, Anish, Mr. Utpal? Like in the HR context, is strategy more important in terms of people management or analytics? So HR analytics is an upcoming field which has come in the last 5-10 years, I think.
It's very difficult. I mean, this question, it's not a straight, like these are in silos. As rightly mentioned by Nishant also, data would be kind of enabler to take you the right strategies. How can you take the right set of strategies without having, without having a backup of the data? How would you make those if you have a certain objective for which you make strategies, how would you reach to those objectives without having some backing? You cannot do everything intuitive. You need to have some support of the data. So, it's not that these two are different compartments. They go hand in hand is what I understand. I mean, what I believe.
Absolutely.
According to me.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Correct. Thank you, Dr. Sheetal Jain. Shreya, do you want to have one more question, or we can wrap up? You can just have.
No, sir, I think,
the
yeah, seeing the time, we'll just wrap up. Palak will just conclude.
So I'll just before Palak concludes, let me just say thank you to Mr. Piyush, who's not here right now, but I want to thank him as well. Dr. Sheetal Jain, for I think some of the things that you said made a lot of sense to me, because having so that's thank you for your words of wisdom, Mr. Utpal. Thank you for your views. Mr. Anish and Mr. Satimo, thank you so much. It was lovely talking to you, and I'm going to connect with all of you on LinkedIn, and I hope you'll accept my invitation.
Thank you, Nishant.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thanks, Nishant.
Thank you very much.
But this is not the official wrap up. But we wrap up wait for Shreya and Palak. That was my vote of thanks. Thanks so much.
You moderated the entire session beautifully. You must compliment. Very well.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you. Pleasure. Yeah, Shreya, over to you.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of everyone present here, I express my sincere gratitude to the guest speakers, Mr. Utpal Chakraborty, Mr. Anish Agarwal, Dr. Sheetal Jain, Mr. Satyamay Chatterjee, and Mr. Piyush Chauhan for taking out time from their busy schedules and sharing their thought-provoking insights with all of us. Post this session, we feel relatively more aware and equipped to understand and subsequently bring about innovative practices in today's business environment as leaders of tomorrow. I'd like to take this opportunity to once again thank our moderator, Mr. Nishant Pandey, for consenting to be the moderator for the session and conducting the session in a highly coordinated manner. I would also like to thank Professor Himanshu Joshi for his constant support and valuable inputs. Himanshu, sir, we will be really honored if you can give some concluding remarks about the summit.
First of all, let me thank all the panel members for sharing such great insights. I think all of us reached to an agreement wherein we see this crisis as an opportunity, and we believe that this new normal has created opportunities in chaos. There were a lot of great insights from each of the panel members, a lot of food for thought for the students to mull over. And I believe that this disruption has forced us to think in different ways, in innovative ways, to move into the new orbit. And this new orbit has boundaries which are ever evolving. And we had great insights in terms of how this opportunity will transform us into a weightless world, wherein we'll see how technology helps us in dealing with this change, and also with the kind of changing consumer mindset and behaviors. Thank you all the panelists for sharing those insights with our students. I think that will go a long way in terms of bringing our students to a reality check in terms of what we need to do in order to deal with this new normal. At the end of the day, all of us will survive, not just survive, but innovate, dream, excel, and move on. And what I would like to end with is, this is an opportunity for all of us to dream what we have not dealt with so far. I mean, there have been various examples that have been shared in terms of new roles emerging, new kinds of mindsets emerging, the need for breaking those silos and thinking of problems as interdependent and not independent. Moving away from just collecting data to connecting the data. And I think these are all great opportunities for us as decision makers to transform. And the panelists shared with you a lot of use cases and the need for lifelong learning and immersive learning through blogs, through TEDx videos, through different books. I think all of this should be seen as a holistic approach, which is the need of the hour. The ability to analyze data differently, the ability to dream differently. And this is a skill set which is not just for select few, but this needs to be ingrained as part of our DNA, and it's for everyone. So I wish all the students the best of luck, and I would like to congratulate the IMAC team for running this show, in such an impeccable manner. Last but not the least, Nishant, as always, has been a great support for all those probing questions and steering the discussion for getting those deep insights. So thank you everyone for your time. It has been a great learning opportunity for me.
Thank you to all the speakers. Now I will kindly request all the speakers to join us in a breakout room for 10 to 15 minutes.
I would like to take this opportunity to commend all the guests, participants, speakers, professors, students, and staff of IMI for making this session an unparalleled success, as well as the media persons for the online coverage of the event.
We would also like to thank RPSG as associate partner, MBA Trek as career and skill development partner, IOCL as co-sponsor, DUBEAT and Independent Student Newspaper as digital media partner, Health and Happiness Private Limited as e-commerce partner, Cengage as educational partner, The Banka as fashion partner, Brewhouse as iced tea partner, Multimind Creations as innovation partner, Punjab National Bank as loan partner, DU Express as media partner, Human Capital as media partner, Mint as news subscription partner, Radio City as radio partner, College Dunia as social media partner, Unity as student community partner, Investors Based Technologies Private Limited as technology partner, Campus Time Pune as youth partner, FinLadder, Tribe Concept, Umbrella Genix, Dr. Vaidya's, Kumbia Sports Fair, Superior Viaco, Unschool, Edupeer, Yours Page, Sage Publishing, SG. Ladies and gentlemen, with this, we conclude this summit. We are certain that the session has been very enlightening for each one of us present here. Thank you all.